Financial Matters.
14 minutes after 8 o'clock is the time. Dr. Frank Magwegwe is here with me, Head of Financial Wellness and Advisory at Nedbank and GIBS, a faculty member. We talk about shares this evening. What are shares, Doc?
I'm so excited, Aubrey, to talk about shares. Good evening to our 702 listeners. Good evening to our Cape Talk listeners. It's so interesting to see also how Ntateng, who produces this amazing show for us, kind of connects the things. I mean, we don't even tell her necessarily. I mean, if you look now later, Aubrey, talking to Stanley Beckett, and he's talking about you can't build wealth without understanding the building materials.
Yeah.
So I'm going to start by
and I got to tell you, nope, I didn't know.
Look at that.
And I'm sure Stanley Beckett didn't know that this is what you're going to be talking about. You didn't know that
until now.
There you go.
Until now. Yeah. One of the building materials for wealth is shares. And in fact, Aubrey, I would want to go as far as saying this is the foundational building material. So if you think about a house, as we always know, without a strong foundation, you don't have a house.
Sure.
Without exposure to shares, I'll answer the question now, what are they? You cannot build wealth. What are shares? When we think of building a house, we are saying they are your foundation, for this house of wealth. Shares are one of those things, Aubrey, you stand back and you realize sometimes how creative human beings are. So shares are a way of helping entrepreneurs access funding, access money when they want to scale and grow their business. So many, many years ago, hundreds of years ago, shares have been around for a long time in different forms. Somebody thought about this idea, and this name share, almost think of it as I own a small share.
Portion,
a small portion in a company. Then we put a comma. That is listed on a stock exchange. In other words, that has shares being bought and sold every day. So how it starts is, think of an entrepreneur. He's grown his business over several years, and it can be a medium-sized company, it can be a big company. They can all go to the Johannesburg Stock Exchange, and they say, this is my business, this is my way I get customers, this is how profitable I am, but I need money for extension. Let's say in growth, 100 million.
Yes.
They issue portions or shares of their company. They come up with a price for it. For our example, let's make it 10 Rand.
Yeah.
They say, this company, we're valuing it at 10 Rand a share times the number of shares they want to sell to you and me. And that is it. You can buy the shares. I can buy the shares. Pension funds buy the shares. And the entrepreneur now has this 100 million that he can use to expand his business, to grow into SADC, to open other shops if it's a retail and malls, to buy equipment and buy machinery.
I've always wondered.
Yes.
I've always wondered how come. I was listening to a conversation my colleague Bruce Whitfield was having. I have the benefit, by the way, Doc, of driving to work and have the benefit of listening to Bruce Whitfield's shows, which is probably one of the most educational processes that I have gone through in my broadcasting career. And he was speaking about the business owned by two brothers called Food Lovers Market.
Yes.
And
it's about 13 years old now.
Yeah. And there are more than 100 shops.
Correct.
Countrywide of Food Lovers Market. I shop at Food Lovers Market. I love the feel of Food Lovers Market and all of those kinds of things.
Example.
Beautiful. Yes. And I always wondered, how were they able to grow so rapidly?
Yes.
To have 100 plus shops throughout the country. Yeah. Now it's beginning to make sense.
Yeah.
That they sold shares or a portion of their company, which they then broke up into smaller shares. And those people who trusted that business model and the people that run that business then bought into that business. That's what
then they get capital. They get money in other ways.
To grow.
Oh. And what's so interesting about that business, you remember how they started? Fruit and Veg City.
Fruit and Veg City.
That was an addition, the Food Lovers Market.
Yes.
They just started a simple shop to just allow you to get fruit and veg at one place as opposed to getting it, at our traditional retailers like a Pick and Pay or a ShopRite, right?
And veg,
fruit and that's where they started.
Yeah.
And so you lead us to such an important distinction that we have. In fact, let me take a step back. All companies have issued shares. The only difference is some decide to go and have those shares traded through a formal stock exchange, like the Johannesburg Stock Exchange.
Right.
Food Lovers Market has shares issued, but they may have private shareholders.
Right.
Maybe 5 people, maybe 10 people.
Right.
They haven't extended it to the broader audience.
But the principle remains the same, right?
Yes.
Whether the shareholders are private shareholders,
a couple of them,
or a public situation where the buying of shares happens on an institution like the JSE.
Yeah.
But the principle is the same.
Got it, yeah.
The principle is the same, that I have access to a portion of this company for a certain amount of money.
And then, of course, Aubrey, we then say, nothing is for mahala in this world.
Yeah.
You have now given a small portion, right, of the monies. Maybe you bought shares for 10,000 or for 1,000. It doesn't matter.
Yes.
What do you get in return?
Yeah.
Before we rush for what you get in return, right? Remember, in previous shows, listeners, we have said, in the journey to build wealth, we have to think of two things side by side. We want to remind you of that.
Yeah.
We cannot think return without thinking risk. They go hand in hand. You put money in the bank. Remember when we spoke about bank products?
Yes.
It's relatively safe. We get small return in terms of interest.
Yes.
Now, when you are giving someone money to buy a share, a portion in their company, you are taking a lot of risk. Why do I say that? How many businesses fall over, bro?
Yeah.
They say in the first 2 years, something as high as 8 in 10 of every business started within 2 years, they closed down. And that number is even high when you think of restaurants and coffee shops. So when you buy shares, there is no, hey, Bra Aubrey, you started a business, it failed, give me back my money. No, it's gone.
Yeah.
When a business fails, the first people to lose money is shareholders. So there's a lot of risk.
I want to tell you a quick story.
Yeah.
Dr. Frank. I think I've told you the story.
Yeah, I think I know where this one is going. Yes.
No, but I'm glad you're telling me that, because I've always had a bit of a qual in my heart.
Yes.
I'm not happy.
Yeah.
I've not been a happy chap.
Yeah.
Because I convinced some brothers of mine back in Mamelodi.
Remember you told me.
I told you the story.
Yes.
I convinced them. I said, hey, no, there's these guys.
Yeah.
They are selling MTN shares.
Yes.
I hardly knew what I was talking about. But for us, man, black people are getting an opportunity to get into mainstream economy and so forth.
Yeah.
I had heard about the Zakhele shares, the other ones.
Yes.
And I want you to break it down for me. Because
We'll
it appears,
to that,
because it appears that there's black shares and there's white shares and what. I was not aware of those things. I thought, no, this was a concession made for us as black people because we hadn't been kept out of the mainstream of the economy for many, many years, and therefore we could now participate.
Correct.
I got my brothers. I got my brothers to take 40,000 rand.
Yeah.
Each of us took 10,000 rand. There's 4 of us.
Yeah.
We bought these shares, Zakhele Futhi shares. We bought them.
Yeah.
And I must be honest with you, they did it on the basis that, obviously, he goes to Johannesburg. He goes to Johannesburg. Now they talk English there.
Good English.
Yeah. Dr. Frank Magwegwe. I lost that money. That money is gone now. Wingweg. That shirt is Wingweg.
That's a good example.
But what I'm learning is precisely what you are saying. That we need to understand that when we want to have a return, we must be willing to contend with the idea that there's a risk.
They are cousins.
If we want to walk on water, we must understand that we are going to be wet.
Yes. I love that. And isn't that the mistake we make?
Yes.
Where we go into these things without knowing. So what a lovely way to really link the two. So risk and return, they are cousins. When we buy shares, we are assuming risk.
Yeah.
Let me remind our wonderful listeners, because we want to keep our show up to date. We're telling news on what's happening. You may know of a company called Transactional Capital. They were in the news the last 2 weeks. They have two main businesses, and most South Africans know them.
Yeah.
The one that has been doing very well, you have seen the brands everywhere, you've seen the cars. We buy cars.
Yes.
The big warehouses.
Yes.
We give you your money in 24 hours.
Yes.
That business is owned by this listed, in other words, this company that raised money through getting us, the public in South Africa, to buy a little bit of their shares.
Yes.
They own
We buy
cars. Then they also own another business that many South Africans know.
Yes.
SA Taxi Finance.
Yes.
The biggest financier of individuals wanting to buy.
Are you driving on the highway there? You see them there on the side.
Exactly.
Okay, yeah.
You can see those two businesses. Right?
Yeah.
2 weeks ago, Pra-Ops, the share price of Transaction Capital fell in excess of 60% in 1 day. So let's break it out for our listeners. If you had bought a share for 10 Rand, within a few hours of trading on the stock exchange, your share was worth 4 Rand. Why? Bad news. We Buy Cars is struggling a little bit from competition from other second-hand buyers and sellers of cars. SA Taxi Finance, big problems. You combine that. It means Transaction Capital is not going to make as much money, profits for you, the shareholder, as they have been making in the past. So then people say, hey, this is bad news. Who knows? This might be the beginning of the end for them. This is too much risk. They start selling the shares. So your money is not guaranteed in shares. That is why I'm emphasizing risk and return. And of course, we've talked about African bank investments when they got into trouble a number of years ago. We've talked about Steinhoff to just show how risky shares can be. But they can also be good because we also spoke of Capitec, right? That has made people millionaires if you had bought into Capitec when they started some 20 years ago.
What then, Dr. Frank, should be the rule of thumb when contemplating the idea of buying shares?
I love it.
Many of us are not educated in understanding the ebbs and flows, the successes and failures and the reasons thereof of businesses. We don't understand some of these deep technicalities. But I imagine that there are certain principles that can be what we could call the rule of thumb.
Yes.
When
like
approaching, when you approach the world of shares.
Yes.
Talk to me about that.
There are a couple. I always want to start here, Aubrey. Most employed South Africans contribute to a retirement fund. Those who are self-employed often put aside money for retirement for themselves through the product we have talked about before on the show, a retirement annuity. They've got tax benefits.
Yeah.
By virtue of putting aside money for retirement, nearly every South African has exposure to shares. They don't own them directly because when you are contributing to a pension fund or you are buying RA, the money that is collected from all working people who are contributing these monies is used by retirement funds to buy shares. Because the magic of shares, it's one of those investments that has been shown over hundreds of years to have high risk but also high return. And therefore it can build wealth. So, rule number 1 says for me simply, please remember, you already have exposure to shares through your retirement annuity, through a tax-free savings investment or account. We spoke about it last time. Through your retirement fund. So, the number one thing to do before you rush to go buy shares on your own, so just acknowledge and accept you've got some exposure And the reason I emphasize that, Bra Aubrey, is because these are very experienced people, right? Who are deciding to invest in shares. They spend a lot of time. They are investment professionals. So it builds on the second point for me. So number one, you've got exposure to shares. You may have not known, but now you know. And the people who buy them on your behalf, they spend a lot of time thinking about it. Is it bank shares? Is it insurance shares? Is it cell phone providers shares? Is it food retailers? Your Pick and Pay, your Woolworths.
Yeah.
Is it clothing, your Truettes, for example? Right? Is it banks, Absa, Nedbank? So you have to spend a lot of time because all those, depending on what the economy is doing, they expose you to different risks. We haven't even talked about gold mining, platinum mining, for example. So the second rule of thumb, once you've said, I have exposure to shares, they are a good thing. Professionals are putting them in for me. Then the second thing you say to yourself, if professionals spend a lot of time to decide what shares to buy, if I have a full-time job somewhere, unless I want to dedicate a portion of time to understand the intricacies of how shares work, it is best that you get exposure, you build wealth using shares via a professional. So either you get a financial advisor who focuses on shares, and then they can help you think through what is your level of risk, how much money can you put aside, what you want to start with. They hold your hand. Or you can do what most South Africans do. You buy what are called unit trusts. These are portfolios of shares. These are groupings of shares. It could be 10 shares, it could be 20 shares, it could be 100 shares that are bought on your behalf by an expert. So that's my number 2. You have exposure to shares, number 1. You need guidance of an expert if you want to do it, and that can be a financial advisor or someone who invests in the market like an asset manager. Then number 3 and last, should you want to do it for yourself? This is what I did with my daughters, because it's proven that if you have a little bit of money, you are okay with the risk that things can go up and down. A good way to start, Bra Aubrey, is to buy shares in companies that you use their products on an ongoing basis. This is what it does to the mind. And that's what I did to my daughters, and I'm trying to introduce them to shares and building wealth through financial education. So I said, girls, we're always going to buy food. We buy at ShopRite Checkers. We buy some stuff at Woolworths. We go to Discam. We go to Clicks. I buy clothes at Truettes. Do you know, girls, these are listed companies. I unpack listings as I've done. And then I say, I want you to observe when we go and shop. Look at how long is the queue. Look at the customer service. Look at the fashion if you're in a food, in a clothing. Yeah. If you are in a food, look at how fresh the food is. What sales are they having? What does that do to you? You link. I shop there. The share price goes up if they're making more money. To make more money, they need more customers to come in. For more customers to come in, they must have the right things that people want.
So you are saying to your daughters, observe the economic activity of the company that you are going to buy shares in.
Yes. And you put money there, try to get that money to grow also.
Yeah, and also be part of the customers.
Correct.
In fact, become a salesperson there if you want.
Yeah.
All right.
So buy things you use daily.
I hear
if you want to get a little bit of exposure and learn, because you are going to learn 2 things quickly.
Yeah.
The share price go up and down, and then you realize it doesn't mean I must sell. I'm in here for a long period, like 3, 4, 5 years. That's number 1.
Yeah.
Then sometimes you do a little dance if you're like me, because you get an SMS, ding ding, and then it says the company that you invested in has paid a dividend.
Oh.
What is a dividend?
Yeah.
They made profit, and they decided we have made enough to grow our business. And we also want to share
the
profit with our shareholders. So for share, they'll say maybe 1 rand per share. So if you own 10 shares, you get 10 rand. Usually in South Africa, every 6 months, some companies pay dividends, sometimes every year. So you get that ting, and you learn from a financial education. I get my return that has got risk from getting dividends, number 1, and the share price going up. If I buy it for 10 and it goes to 20, I've also made money. So it really makes you learn about building wealth with this amazing invention, if you ask me, called shares on the stock exchange.
I was talking yesterday to a very good friend of mine. He's very much like you. He thinks and studies finances and so forth. I call him Papa G.
Yeah.
He was here to talk about the fact that we need to understand that we as individuals are in and of ourselves an economy.
Correct.
And that we are the building blocks of a greater system.
Yeah.
Call it the Sandton economy or the Soweto economy, together with all of the other individuals that are part of that economy. And you've just made it very clear to me that you standing in the queue at Total Sports or at Clicks or at Discount are involved in an economic activity.
Correct.
That either supports the growth of that company or not.
Absolutely.
Now, if you are an owner of the shares of that company and you do not buy from that company, you're not supporting your own shares.
Yes.
Ah!
You are in that queue in the bank and you say, maybe this is not good service.
Yeah.
Or you say the service was so awesome and I happen to own shares in this bank. If they do well, I'm also going to do well. So there's financial education, but there's really the building of wealth. And I want, Bra Aubrey, because that's really pretty much it. We've unpegged shares.
Yeah.
But we always really want our listeners to reflect.
Yeah.
This is kind of, a show that breaks finances, if you ask me, when I tell people about this show. In layman language, we don't use big words. We demystify.
Yeah.
And we want people to ask them questions. We know not everybody calls, but we want you to sit there, 702 listener, in Cape Talk, and say to yourself, I get it. Comma. Don't put a full stop. I get it. If I'm not investing in shares, I am putting at risk the opportunity to build wealth for me and my family. This is the tool that has been shown the Elon Musks, the Warren Buffetts, the richest people in the world. Either they start businesses, they list them, or they run their business without listing them. The thing nearly all rich people, mega wealthy people have in common, the Adrian Goes, to just talk of our own SA, right? The guys who started Aspen Group, the guys who founded Mediclinic, they've got one thing in common, Bra Aubrey: making money through shares.
Give me a call on 011-883-0702 if you've got any questions for Dr. Frank Magwegwe as it pertains to shares. If you're in Cape Town, the number is 021-446-0567. As we break down, as we demystify, as we bring to the ground some of the ideas behind this specific tool of wealth creation, shares. Give me a call. What questions do you have? Dr. Frank, I've dedicated myself as a broadcaster, as somebody who is in the media space. This is what I want to be remembered for. If ever the day comes where I stand amongst the great names of broadcasters one day, if that should ever happen. I want to be known.
By the way, it will happen.
From your lips, my brother, from your lips.
Awesome.
But the one thing I wake up every morning, and if I drive home, I ask myself, whatever conversation I had on that particular day, did I make it accessible?
Correct.
Not dumb it down.
I love it. Accessible.
Not dumb it down, but make it accessible. I have a fundamental reason why I have that particular goal in life. It is because I believe that part of the reason why we have so much poverty, there are many other reasons, but it is because of ignorance. We don't know.
Absolutely.
We were not taught. We didn't know these things. Somebody didn't get enough knowledge, or somebody kept the knowledge away, but we didn't know this information. But this information has always been available. In fact, it has been made available, but many times it has been spoken in ways that are inaccessible to us.
Big language. Price earning ratio.
Dat
Dividend
woorde.
Yeah.
So
Big language.
what I'm hoping that
Yeah.
is happening now as people are listening to you and I speak about this is to understand that this is the revolution.
Yeah.
That our luminaries and our prophets have been speaking about, to say that this is what is going to set us free.
100%.
Set us free from the cycle of poverty.
Yeah.
That we need to understand how money and wealth works.
How is wealth generated?
Yes, and what are the tools and the instruments used in that space?
Yeah.
Amongst those tools is a thing called shares.
And if seven not listening, I want to repeat it. I'm giving a prescription early today. If you are not investing in shares through your pension fund, through your retirement annuity, or any of your extra money, you are compromising the opportunity to build wealth for you and your. This is a proven way. I mean, just think of the founders of Pick and Pay. What did Raymond Ackerman do? Start Pick and Pay, grow it, list it.
Yeah.
And anyone can buy shares in Pick and Pay. So those who bought early benefited with him and him as the founder. Eden Go did the same thing. The founders of this camp 13 years ago did exactly the same.
So now,
this is a tool for building wealth.
So now, call. No question is stupid.
Yeah.
No approach to the issue of shares as we are discussing it this evening is not allowed.
Yeah.
Ask the question. Ask the question. If you can't ask the question in English, ask it in the vernacular, we'll translate. But it is important for us now, folks, to begin to grapple and to learn some of these concepts, these ideas, in order for us to break the cycle of poverty. Shares are but one. They are but one. There are many. Dr. Frank Magwegwe is going to be talking to us about them as we continue these conversations. But shares are but one. The opportunity to buy a small portion of a company. It is connected, however, to the possibility that you may lose that money. It's called risk. If you are going to enter the space of shares without understanding, then don't enter at all. I've got a question that I want to ask after these calls that's playing around in my head.
Beautiful. I'll also link, because I think we've laid a good foundation, right?
Yeah.
We'll link this to your experience.
Yes.
Because I'm sure our listeners are saying, where was that story going? How come they haven't told us?
Yes.
How come Bra Aubrey and his 3 colleagues lost the 40,000? We'll answer that.
Hey, we must answer that one.
You're not going to get your money back. But I also lost a lot of money myself. Remember I told you, in African Bank.
Let's take some calls. Isaac is in Naledi, Soweto. Isaac, good evening to you, my brother. What is the question for Dr. Frank?
Hi, Obs. How are you?
I'm very well, my brother. What's the question?
Good, thanks, man. Thanks for the great show as always.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, Dr. Magwegwe.
Yes, thank you for calling. Good evening. Thank you for listening to our show.
Thank you, sir. I've been interested in shares from a long time, but my problem is I don't know where to start, who to talk to, how to go about.
Excellent.
Can you please at least explain, if I want to go to ShopRite right now and buy one share at ShopRite, where do I start? Where do
Beautiful.
I go?
You are leading us to questions we wanted to answer. You came to the right show. Definitely, we unpack these difficult or sometimes confusing ideas. So, where do I buy shares? I'm going to stick with your example. It's not mine. You spoke about ShopRite because the company is listed, right? So, you say, I do monthly grocery at ShopRite. I see long queues at their money market. These guys are doing well. You can buy ground tickets there. You can buy combi ticket, what. The queues are long. Awesome. I want to buy a share. What the next step you take? You realize they make their money from selling groceries and other things like financial services, their market counter. So their money market counter, there is a little bit of risk, but I'm okay with the risk because I'm investing for the long term. Second point, you understand ShopRite. First point. Second point, I don't need this money in the next 3 years or so. That's your second point. Now you say, I'm ready. I want to buy 10 shares. What do? You have a number of ways. You cannot go to the Johannesburg Stock Exchange yourself, get to reception with your money and say, hey, I've come to buy shares. No, doesn't work like that. You go through your bank. Most banks have online share trading that they can even link to your account. You can use that to go straight into the JSE. They buy on your behalf those shares. So one avenue, online share trading through your bank. Another option, you go to what is called a stockbroker. This is a qualified company that is allowed to buy shares on behalf of consumers.
Like which one? Like give us an example.
Sasfin,
okay.
Standard Bank Security,
okay.
JP Morgan, Kazanov. There are a lot of them. In fact, how do you find them? Good point, Bra Aubrey. You just go to jse.co.za. There is a list of registered stockbrokers. You can even call the JSE. They will tell you list of registered. Most of your banks, FNB Private Wealth, Investec Private Wealth, Standard Bank Private Wealth, will have opportunities for you to buy. So there are many of them. There is even companies, Bra Aubrey, that focus only on that, like core equities. We're not punting them. We're just talking where you could go.
Yeah.
Once you go to them, all you need to say is, I have 3,000 rand. I would like to use it to buy ShopRite shares.
Right.
They, right there when you're on the phone call, Bra Aubrey, if you phone, they buy it and say, you are a proud owner of 3,000 shares. Look out every 6 months for dividend. If they do pay a dividend, look out how the share price is going up and down in newspapers, online. And it is as simple as that.
Oh, I've lost. I've lost. All right. Elton is in Kempton Park. Elton, good evening to you.
Good evening, Aubrey and Dr. Magwegwe.
Good evening, Elton.
Yes, I just want to ask about the profit share. How does the profit share work? Because
profit share?
Yes.
Tell me a little bit more. It's got different meanings. I want to get a bit of your context.
No, they say it's working in the company. That company, if they they give them a budget, and maybe they say that their budget a month is 1 million.
Yes.
If they make that 1 million, they get a share
of the
profit.
Perfect. Okay.
Good.
So I wanted to get that. Yeah.
Hey, Elton, that question, my brother.
Is a good
I'm
one.
glad that you asked that question. Thank you, Elton. Yeah.
I've just realized.
Yeah.
I don't want to be in trouble with your bosses. We are mentioning all these shows, these shares. Siale, Nale. Prime Media is listed.
Yeah.
It owns properties. 702. Cape Talk. One can buy shares in Prime Media. Okay, they didn't script this. They didn't say I must say it, guys. But I'm just saying, here is something that's not food. That's not clothes. That's not insurance. That's not a bank. And what you look at the lineup of the shows, you look at listenership, and then you decide if you want to buy in Prime Media or not. You look at perhaps new stuff they're doing in the digital world. Right? So Prime Media also listed, right? Owning radio stations. So profit share, what does it mean? Here, the word share is common to what we are talking about, but as you correctly pointed out, this often happens to salespeople who sell insurance or any other sales, related role in the market, where they say you hit your target and we will give you 5% of the profits that we have made. And so they are sharing the profit. That's not quite buying a share in the company, but they are just saying when they've done well, they would like to share parts of the profit with you. If you take it to a higher level, a little bit similar, companies done well, they share the profits via dividends if you are buying into a listed company. So to close it, profit share, slightly different if you are being thanked for your contribution, but to link it to shares, companies share profits by paying a dividend. I hope that helps, Elton.
Elton, does that help you?
Yes, it helped me a lot. The second question, when I buy shares, so how long it takes for me to get the rewards back?
Okay.
Before you answer that question,
yes,
Elton, it's important also to know, my brother, and I'm jumping in here before the good doctor jumps in.
Nice.
For you to remember that it's important to understand that there's going to be rewards, but also as you enter this space, understand that there may be losses.
Yes, I know that.
You're aware of that. All right, good.
So, Elton, I want to use this as an answer to you and to our other Cape Talk and 702 listeners who may be having the question. I really want to paint a picture of the risk with shares. And I'm going to do, what do you call it now? I'm saying upfront, I am not commenting on the rightness or the wrongness of what I'm going to share now, right? I'm not having a view on it. I'm just telling you a risk that a company faced. A couple of months ago, Discam, many of us use Discam in many ways, either just going to get medication or buying some stuff there. They were involved in a big issue around employment equity and transformation.
Yes, I remember,
and the letter that the CEO wrote to employees around how they should recruit at a managerial level. Effectively, was saying we should recruit blacks only because, in fact, it came out as we shouldn't recruit any more whites because we need to improve our employment equity number. I'm only saying it in the context of risk. What happened after that? The share price of Discam fell substantially. They were caused by the likes of Steve Hofmeyer, don't shop at Discam. There were some people who voted with their feet and they were not going because they were not happy with how it was handled. So I'm just illustrating the point that something as simple as a miscommunication, if you want to call it that, by a CEO, it cost the company, when they reported their financials, millions of rands in profit, and their share price fell, and that's the risk Bra Aubrey, is talking about. Now that we have unpacked the risk, how long does it take you to know whether you are going to get rewards? Well, it's actually quite quick, because you buy them at 9 a.m. in the morning. By the time the stock exchange closes at the end of the day, you already know, because either that share price has moved up, has moved down, or has stayed the same. But to really get your reward, to build wealth, because this is a foundation for building wealth, forget about the day-to-day, the week-by-week, the month-by-month. Really look at it, in terms of 2 years, 3 years, to say the share price is nicely going up and building wealth. Every 6 months or so, if the company pays a dividend, you get that ting-ting SMS, and you also get a dividend if they do pay it, and it's showing you part of that reward as well. Part of it, share price going up over time. Another part, ting-ting, dividends in your bank account every 6 months or so.
Elton, good luck to you, my brother. I hope that this information has helped you.
Thanks a lot. Have a good day, guys.
Thank you so much, Elton in Kempton Park. Eve is in Johannesburg. Good evening to you, Eve.
Hey, Aubrey. Hey,
Whoa,
Dr. Magwegwe.
Eve. Sorry, man. I was expecting a woman.
Oh, yeah.
My apologies.
I'm sure he gets that often. You see, he's laughing now.
I get it quite a lot.
Yes,
it quite a lot. I'm kind of used to it as well.
Right. Thank you so much for the call, Eve. Go ahead, sir.
Yeah. No, look, first of all, great shows as always. Aubrey, I was listening to you in Papa G yesterday night, and AIM tonight. The one thing you have failed to put in layman terms is that risk element.
Yeah, that's
all the fear we all carry.
Yeah,
we just need to put it in a simple layman term. You might lose money, but you really want to make money.
Correct.
You have to throw yourself on the deep end and swim until you get to surface and have your dream life.
Yeah.
Look, we've been in some business schools. We've learned one or two of those things. Mind you, we're still fearful.
Yeah.
Is it black tax? Is it never enough money? Is it... we, even I included, also need to jump into the deep end and swim in the cold water until I pull myself on the other end. And sit with that seat under the gazebo, looking back and laughing at it.
Eve, thank you very much, my brother. I appreciate it. You break it down.
For me, Aubrey, he's reminding us of two things. Number one of the key pillars of our show, we always say it, is the mindset.
Yeah.
What is a mindset? It's beliefs and attitudes we have towards something. So here we can say, and we ask as part of the prescription, what is your mindset towards share investing? What are your attitudes? What are your beliefs? Because if you think this thing has a lot of risk only, you're missing up on the return. If you think it's always return, you're missing up on the risk. And that is why I started with, you already invest, to touch on that mindset. And Eve has just brought it up nicely for us. So do not think the working South African already has some shares through their pension fund. So please don't have the mindset of saying it's too much risk, I don't want to do it.
Yeah.
You're already investing in it in shares, so you can just put a bit of extra money you have either in direct shares or in unit trust that will break down next week. That's one part of what he said. The second thing is start. You can put 1,000 rand, Aubrey. 1,000 rand. Nothing stops you from buying today shares worth 1,000 rand in one of your favorite companies that you frequent on your grocery list.
Yeah.
So you can start. That's the other point that you put in for us. Because we're getting close to the end, I want to quickly answer your question on BE shares, if you're okay with that.
Yeah.
So,
in fact, the question has come through.
Oh, lovely.
Somebody said we have invested 40,000 rands into MTN Zakhele 40 shares.
Yeah.
Does it mean we lost everything?
Good.
From Bongeleni.
Nice.
Should I take quickly the call from
Yes.
Koketso and then you round off?
Then we'll round off with that point.
Yes.
In fact, I've got a nice prescription on that.
Koketso, good evening to you.
Gentlemen, and thank you for the wonderful topic.
Thank you, sir.
I'm mindful of time, so I just wanted to comment to say that I've been having the same discussion with my 9-year-old son, and he has a question for you, gentlemen. So this is Orifile asking his question.
Awesome.
What's the youngest age that you can get shares and how much?
Beautiful question, young man.
My goodness. And
beautiful question, young man.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And we'll answer it quickly for you by saying the following, because the good doctor does some bit of research on his journey to be a professor. So a person as young as 5, hey, Chris laughed that one. As young as 5 can understand money, as young as 6. So 8-9-year-old, without a doubt, what you have said, you'll be able to understand. They give a dividend if the share is making profits, and then I buy it for 1 rand. If it goes up, I'm doing well. So what is it that you need to do? What you need to do is some idea around how about you get your child, the caller, couple of shares for their birthday. Worth a few 100 rands. Because you can do it. And then they can track their shares in different companies, and it's a way of improving their financial education.
What did you call them?
The stockbrokers.
Yes.
You open an account. A 9-year-old is a minor. So for the account to be in their name and they can transact on it is 18 on their own. But as a parent, you can open an account in their name. You call, I'm buying shares for my daughter. Please put them in this portfolio. When the daughter or son turns 18, they are now in charge of that portfolio.
Talk to me about BEE shares.
BEE shares, they are a wonderful instrument that came as a result of transformation in our country, broad-based black economic empowerment. And we get shares in MTN. Nedbank did it a number of years ago. African Bank did it. Saso Kanyisa. There are lots, and MTN Zakhele, Super Sport, Putumanati, you name them. The one thing they've got in common, those shares are sold to black investors at a discount. Individuals, and Stockfells, for example.
Yeah.
Right? At a discount. That's the only thing.
Yeah.
You get them at a discount. After that, you have exactly the same risks as anybody who's holding the other shares that are not BE. Old Mutual recently closed their own scheme. If Old Mutual is not doing well, the BE share won't do well. The normal share listed on the stock also won't do well. So please go with your eyes open. So what happened with MTN, that scheme perhaps didn't do well. In other words, the share price didn't go up. They were having problems. They were not making enough profit. When it closed, like the African Bank one, like the Sasol Kanyisa one, lots of investors lost their money, reminding us of the risk of investing in shares.
How do we get in touch with you, Doc?
frankmagwegwe.com. Click that contact me button. The main prescription, I gave a couple as we went through. If you are employed, go to your HR tomorrow. Say to them, I want to know the shares that I hold through my pension fund. It will be interesting for you. You'll be able to get your top 10. And you know, and you prove what I've been saying. You already own shares.
Dr. Frank Magwegwe.